So if you could go back in time, right, and you can work on any of the classic, maybe the first 20 years of Disney movies, is there one or two that stick out that you would absolutely love to work on if you could?
Yeah, Pinocchio.
Pinocchio? That water scene, so beautiful.
Now, for me, it's like perfection.
Yes.
It's sometimes I watch the movie and I see the drawings in books. And when I was at Disney, I remember, I don't know today, but when I was there at the time, they had the animation research library. You could go there and see original drawings from the time. You could ask for, can I see a scene of Pinocchio, original? They would pull a whole box with all the drawings. And I remember looking at these drawings from Pinocchio, and I was like, it's a lot of work here. It's not something you can do in a week or 2 weeks. It takes time to do all these effects of water and every. If you flip the animations on paper, if you flip and you see all the water moving perfectly, but every little, they would color every little part of it. It's like, for me, it's all, it's art. It's totally art. It's not something they just did for the movie. It was an artistic piece, you know?
Yes. It's
something that we don't see much anymore. And so for me, it's perfection. And always, when I watch the movie, it's always, how they could do that at that time, you know?
Yeah.
You know, only a few years from, if you think about it, only a few years from Steamboat Willie, you know?
Yes.
The very stiff animation that they did. Only a few years to get to Pinocchio. It's so fast, you know? So for me, Pinocchio, yeah, I would say Pinocchio.
Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I sit down with Disney animator Sandro Cleuzo. We chat about him breaking into Disney animation, working on the cult classic and one of the most underrated movies Disney ever put out, The Emperor's New Groove. Not to mention we chat about my favorite modern day princess, Tiana, from The Princess and the Frog. I love that movie. And we talk a little bit about him working on Scoob. Sandro's enthusiasm is so infectious during this conversation, and I couldn't help but smile throughout this amazing chat we had. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's in My Head podcast. I'm your host, Julian, and today I'm joined by Mr. Sandro Cleuzo. Sandro, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. If I can do anything, it's reaching out to the people that made my childhood so much fun and now my kids' childhood. And a lot of people that listen, you guys made a lot of happy memories, especially with the little movie called The Emperor's New Groove, man. Of the most, in my opinion, one of the most underrated gems of the Disney film. I would love to know, man, how did you get onto this movie? We'll start from there, but how'd you get onto The Emperor's New Groove?
Yes. In fact, it's my favorite movie ever that I worked on, just because of I was so free to do whatever I wanted with the characters I had. The director, Mark Dindal, he was the director. He just, gave me these characters, like all these 4 or 5 characters, and he said, "Okay, just go with, do whatever you want, like this. These are your characters."
Yeah.
So I was so happy with that. So I was a lead animator on those characters, so I didn't have to show the supervising animator. So they were my characters. I could do whatever I wanted. So I was so happy. But just to go back a little bit, when I started at Disney, I started on the Fantasia 2000. On the last segment, I don't know if you remember the Firebird segment. Yeah, that was my first job at Disney. Was animating the sprite in that sequence. That was my first job at Disney. And then just after that, they had what they call open house, where they show all the projects in development. And so you could go there and see what was happening and talk to the directors. But they invited me to work on this movie called Kingdom in the Sun. I don't know if you know the history of this.
I know a little bit, but I'm pretty sure the fans would love to know about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a very nice documentary called The Sweatbox. I don't know if you've ever seen it, That's the story of it. If you see that movie, if you see that documentary, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hired to based on my animation on the sprite, which that is so different. It's totally the opposite of Emperor's New Groove, the kind of animation. But the directors of Fantasia, they told the other directors about me. So they asked me to, to take a look at the project. Kingdom in the Sun was very different than Emperor's New Groove. Mm-hmm. Very different. The theme was very similar, but the story was totally different. It's more like an epic movie and more traditional Disney movie. Mm-hmm. We did the princess, the villain, the evil villain. It was very different. So so they offered me a job to work as an animator on that movie, and I took it. It was my second project at Disney. After the Fantasia was my second one. And then because of the story changes that they had, the movie wasn't working well. And so they had to stop and redo the whole thing. So maybe you know the story. It's a long story. But so it became the Emperor's New Groove, right? So what happened was there was a female character in the original movie, Kingdom in the Sun, which was supposed to be the love interest of Cusco, mm-hmm. right? Which is very traditional Disney. Like there's a prince, there's a princess, And I was supposed to do the princess in that first version because they liked what I did with the characters and the kind of the style of animation. So they gave me the character to do as a supervising animator. So I did a test with the character and everything. And then the story changed completely. It changed many times. It was very painful for everybody, very painful because we started a character and they would say, oh, the story changed, you have to cut the character. So my character was cut, it was totally out of the movie. And because I was a supervising animator, and they didn't like what I did with the character, they gave me all these other characters as like, okay, we want to keep you as a supervising animator. So just having fun with these characters. And I love it because I did the theme song guy that comes up out of the cake. Yeah. With the Tom Jones music voice. And I did the waitress and, in the cafeteria sequence. I did the old man, that's thrown out the window.
Groove, groove.
Yeah. So what I loved was each one was so different than the other. Like for example, the waitress was very underplayed. She didn't move too much. It was like, oh, okay, whatever. The old man was like trembling. Oh, please, The theme song guy is a performer, so he would sing and jump. And I also did the character with the very funny hat. When Cusco is choosing the wives, the ladies, and the guy is very nervous. Oh, please don't kill me, And he was very nervous. So every character was so different, and that's why I loved it. But I started on Kingdom in the Sun, Yeah, at one point I was put together with Jin Kim, the Korean designer. He's my friend. We work roommates. They put me and him to work with Nick Ranieri. There was a character called the Huaca, was the little rock. Like a little amulet, little rock, and he would talk. It was very funny. And the character was, because the story changed, was completely gone. And so I was at one point working with Nick on that character. We did production work. We did several scenes. So there was so much that changed, and it was very painful because we didn't know what we were getting, But at the end, I think the result was very interesting. It was very funny. I don't laugh a lot in animation because I do animation. Yeah. But that one I laugh all the time. I see, I still laugh at the jokes and the gags. I think it's really funny. Mark Dindo was brilliant. He had a different way of directing. And his timing is very great. It's very different than the traditional Disney films. It was more like, in a way, more like a Warner Brothers kind of style, in a way, like the timing and the gags. So it was, for me, it was my favorite movie ever to work on.
Yeah, I remember when this came out, I I think it came out in 2000, so I would have been about 11, maybe 12, somewhere around
Wow.
there. Yeah, just depending on it, right?
Yeah.
So I remember going to see this, and I'm from Orlando, Florida, right? So
Right.
Disney isn't too far from me.
I was there. I spent a year and a half there working at the
Yeah,
studio there.
what'd you think before we talk about how I saw this? What'd you think of Orlando? Do you get to come back to the States often?
Sometimes, yeah, I did. Actually, almost every year I would go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's been like 3 years, but I would go like every year.
Yeah.
I loved Orlando. I loved living there. I loved it.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to live, man. It's definitely
Yeah.
I've been all over the country. I've been all over the world. Like I said, I was Navy for a little while.
Right.
I
Yeah.
got to go to a whole bunch of different countries, and we talked Italy right before we hit record. The first country I ever went to when I was 17, I got to go to Italy and got to
Wow.
experience Italy, the culture,
Fantastic.
the women, the food, just it was so,
It is great. Yeah.
it really was. It was I don't say a culture shock in a bad way. It was something like I'm going there, and I had one way of looking at it because I would see it in movies, I would read it in books, I would
Yeah.
see it in pictures. So you have this preconceived notion on what something is, and then you get there and it just blows all expectation. It was probably the prettiest place I've ever seen in my life, between Rome and Venice, and Florence was my favorite.
That's where I live. I live in Florence.
Yeah. Oh man, I get to see the statue of David, the real one.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, they had a whole bunch of them out there because people kept tearing them down back in the day. Whenever there was a war, they tried to destroy it. And when we were there, probably like 6 months or so before, a lady was shot and killed there because she tried chiseling off the toe of the statue of David. Yeah, so it was crazy just seeing all of this art and this, like I said, these buildings, these churches, these monasteries. I get to see.
It's like an open air museum.
Yes, it really is. It's like a time capsule, right? You look around and everything is hundreds of years old. You're just like, whoa.
Right.
But yeah, so going back to The Emperor's New Groove. So I get there, I see this movie, right? And I'm just blown away. I absolutely love this movie. This movie, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying that.
Oh, beautiful. Sorry about that. So this movie, we would quote this so much with my friends. Like, no touchy was one of those things.
Yeah.
That thing would and then it was Kronk and it was Yzma. The cast of characters you guys brought together was phenomenal, man. Like I said, watching this as a little kid, I was blown away because I knew it was a Disney movie. It didn't feel like a Disney movie. It felt different, right? And I don't know what it was. Like I said, so many iterations of this movie coming and going, and you guys didn't really know what was going to happen or how it was going to be pushed. But I'm glad we got the movie of The Emperor's New Groove that we got, because like I said, it is a movie that is so underrated. Not very many people talk about it, but the fan base that does talk about it are ride or die for this one. They absolutely love it. Looking back at this movie, almost 22 years now. What is your favorite part that you love in this movie? Like, what's your favorite part that you got to animate out of all those sequences you got to animate? What was your favorite one? And then what was one that you absolutely loved that you didn't animate on?
Well, it's very hard to pick one or two sequences. I like the one with when Cusco is choosing the wives. Yeah. And the little guy is so nervous because he was in charge of gathering all those girls for him. And if Cusco wasn't happy, he would ask to kill this guy. Yeah. So he was so nervous because he couldn't get killed. So I just love the character, the voice. For me, it was my favorite part to animate, was that little guy, because he was so nervous, and I got to do all those little, oh please, don't kill me, all those kind of. So I had to imagine all that kind of. The guy was so afraid of his life, That's my favorite part. I also loved the old man. Yeah. That sequence, I loved doing him.
He was a lot of fun too. Now, what about your favorite scene? Do you have a favorite couple scenes that you didn't animate that some of your friends might have animated? What's some of your favorite parts?
I love Yzma a lot.
Man, she's so great.
Yeah, Yzma is really well done, and it's very hard to pick. I can't say one particular scene, but I love the animation of Yzma. done by Dale Bear. Dale Bear was one of the top animators ever. I think he died 2 years ago or so. But he was like one of the guys who worked with the Nine Old Men.
Yeah.
I think his first job as an animator was at Disney was Robin Hood. So he was right there with my favorite animators ever. Yeah. He was working with them, with the old guys. So he did Yzma beautifully. And was supposed to be Andrés Deja's character. In Kingdom in the Sun, we had Yzma. And Andrés Deja was in charge of doing Yzma. He designed her. It was very beautiful what he did. And they did a whole musical sequence, beautiful animated. Part of the animation was done in Florida, at the studio in Florida. It was beautiful. But then when the story changes and Andrés didn't like the way the movie was going, it was so different. So he left and Dale Bear took over and redesigned Yzma. And to me, the final design is very nice. It's like, for me, he improved the design. It's more interesting what he did. But it was based on what other people did, like Andreas and other designers.
Now you've mentioned the Nine Old Men a couple times, and I'd be remiss not to ask: did you get to work with any of them? I know a lot of them, started to pass away before the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Did you get to work with any of them?
No, because when I started animation, they were already retired. So I started my a career in '85. In '85, I think they were writing the books, like Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson were writing books, and they had, I think we had only Ward Kimball, maybe Mark Davis, maybe Mel Call alive.
Yeah.
All the rest were already dead. So I just met some of them, but they were retired.
Yeah. That's always cool, because whenever I get the chance, like I've had a few people on here that have had the experiences of working, with Frank or Ollie, or and going over to the Hanna-Barbera side, because I've had quite a few people that have worked over at Cartoon Network, and them getting to work with Bill and Joe. Chuck has come up a couple times, and I think that was probably it as far as getting to work with real legends in the game. Guys paved the way for future animators. With you being from Brazil, do you remember your first interaction with a Disney movie or a Disney feature, or a Disney cartoon or comic?
I remember watching on TV the shorts, some of the shorts. They used to show every Sunday on TV, the short. But the feature film, I think the first one I ever saw was the Aristocats. Yeah, which I still love it. That was my first one that I've seen at the theater. But I had seen the short films like Donald Ducks and Mickey Mouse and all the others. I used to see on TV every Sunday at the time in the 70s. They used to show 70s and early 80s. They used to show on TV every Sunday. But feature film, Aristocats was the first one.
That was my little sister's favorite movie. She absolutely loved that movie. When they would show them in Brazil, would they be in English or
no, dubbed in Portuguese?
Yeah. So who were some, like, so for American kids and American adults and stuff, we've got some voice actors that we absolutely love. Who were some of the voice actors that you just adored hearing from the Portuguese side? Do you have a couple that absolutely you loved?
No, because at the time they had like actors that I don't even know who they are, like older actors, veteran actors. And some of them were like professional voice actors. Yeah. So it's very hard. It's not like we get a star to do a voice for a cartoon. Today they do that. Today for the new cartoons, they get like big Brazilian stars to do it. But at the time, we're like professional voice actors. So to be honest, I don't even remember I don't even know their names.
Oh, no worries at all, man. It's just interesting getting a medium like animation or comic books, movies. It's so cool to see when it shows up in a different country, or us being Americans, we see something that's very, very popular and say like a place like Brazil or a place like Italy, and then it translates and it comes over. Or perfect example, with you being in animation, I'm pretty sure you've seen just the influx of anime, right? Throughout everything now.
It's amazing. It's so big today.
Yeah, it's huge, right? So we're seeing this thing that has just been budding and blooming and blowing up in Japan to coming over here and just taking an entire nation by storm. So it's just crazy to see how it can jump from culture to culture, language to language, and then we all watch the same thing.
And also, anime is influencing lots of American productions. You can tell when you watch some of the American TV shows. It's very influenced by Japanese animation.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Life inspires art and art inspires art. So it's really cool to see
how it is.
Yeah, it's just cool. And I got a 12-year-old son and I have a 10-month-old son. So my 12-year-old, like, he won't watch cartoons. Like, I love American style cartoons, and I also like anime a lot, but he is strictly just an anime. He don't want to watch anything. Like, we'll watch Disney movie. He loves Disney movies. We'll watch that. We'll listen to the soundtracks and everything like that. But when it comes to cartoons, like his cartoons now, he's been bitten by the anime bug, and that's what he wants to stay in. Like, so he'll draw the characters. It's really cool to see what it probably looked like for me at his age, getting into what I got into, and then him getting and finding his own people, his own little clique to join and talk to. So it's really cool.
Does he like manga?
Yeah, he likes them both. Like, for me, because I love watching the shows. So I won't read the manga because I'll look at him. I'm like, hey, have they hit this part in the show yet in the books? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'll go and read it now. He likes reading it while he's watching it, right? So if he can go with the book, and if he goes too far in the book, he's perfectly fine with it, because he's still he can delineate, or he can sit there and separate himself from the show, and he can just like be amazed at how pretty it is compared to what it was like on a 2D side, but it's 3D now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so he's just it's crazy to see his little brain work, right? So you see the wheels turning and everything, and he's watching all of this stuff. It's just really cool to see at such a young age what I probably look like, But going back to you and the Emperor's New Groove, when you guys are working on this, when they make that initial shift and they know what they want for a movie, the movie that we're going to end up getting, what is the feeling like for you in that? Is it hard to kind of feel like what you guys are doing is what you're supposed to be doing, or what's the feeling like going around for you during that time, that trepidatious time?
At the beginning was great, working on the Kingdom mini-san, that first version. Everything was good, and we're trying characters, doing tests. Everything was great, and then we heard stories of management didn't like the movie, the way it was going, and we started hearing, the director might be fired and all that kind of thing. It was a little difficult. And then got to a point where they said, well, they only have 2 weeks to turn this around, otherwise we're gonna have to lay off everybody, That was kind of scary for many people, So for a couple of weeks, we were like, we might get fired, everybody. So, but in the end, Mark Dindal and the story team, they came up with the Emperor's New Groove, the final version, Emperor's New Groove, in like 2 weeks. It's really fast. So they actually saved everybody, everybody's jobs. But it was very at that particular time, it was very difficult when they said, well, they only have 2 weeks, otherwise it might be a big layoff. So that was kind of hard. But then after that, when we start Emperor's New Groove, the final version, things really went fast. We had to do it fast because of the time we spent. We lost on the first version, but we had so much fun. Things went great after that on the production.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, it was really cool. Everybody was working really well, and everybody was enjoying other people's work, and we're having fun. That's the thing. Everybody was. I could tell my friends were having fun. Animating. I was having fun. So But that 2 weeks that we're waiting for, what if they don't get it? You know, what if it doesn't work? Might be a big problem, you know. But after that, things went really smoothly. And Mark Dindo was so clear what he wanted. Was very easy to work with him because he's not the kind of director who doesn't know what he wants. Oh yeah, I have to see first. No, he knew what he wanted, and he explained to you. You did your animation, show him. Sometimes he would say, yeah, approved, or he would say, oh, just change this little thing. But he knew what he wanted. It was very clear, and that way is so easy to work because it's not like you're gonna redo 10 times, you know. You talk to him, he explains what he wants. He sees the first pass of your animation in rough. He knows what's happening there. If he likes, he approves. If he doesn't, no, you might have to do a few changes, but it was very smoothly. Some directors, they're not sure, and you do a version, they say, I'm not sure, try this, try that, and you keep it reworking. But he was very clear. He was very, let's make this movie quickly and efficiently, you know. And he was amazing as a director.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Especially when you have a leader you could look up to and somebody that knows what direction you need to go to. Because I'm sure at some point in time in all of our lives, we've worked for somebody that is indecisive, that doesn't know whether they're coming or they're going. And it's very, very, it's hard to really get a feel for anything, because then everybody, if you start seeing the leader panic, what happens? The soldiers panic. So once everybody panic, and it goes downhill real quick. Looking at this movie, like I said, this movie is so fun, man, from start to finish. I love the little cutaways that they'll do when Kuzco is explaining his story. Like him crossing out, Pacha, and him circling himself, and just all of this
interacting with the viewer.
Breaking the third wall, man. Is that a Mark Dindal thing, or is that something that the animators might have come up in, or a writer might have come up, said, hey, we want to break the third wall a little bit? But do you know how that came about?
Well, I don't know exactly, but I'm sure it's not the animators. It's the story people. I think it was the story team. They came up with that. I'm pretty sure it's Mark Dindal with the story guys working on that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Because just having that little pause break, where you're laughing and then you've got to sit there and you think, oh, what's he doing? Oh, he's doing something else funny. So it's one of those things where it resets your emotion, or it resets your ability to laugh at something. Because if you're always laughing, it's hard to go higher. So if you're always crying, it's hard to go lower. So trying to find that balance. Yeah, it was really nice. Plus some, like I said, some of the scenes in here are still some of the funniest Disney scenes of all time. I'm like him and Bucky at the beginning with the Jaguars, and when he pops the balloon, it's just silly stuff like that. It's just really fun. Looking back at this movie from 20 years now, I mean, do you have just as many fun memories now as you did back then?
I do. I still remember, like I said before, it was my favorite movie to ever worked on, and it was fun, and the atmosphere was great.
Yeah.
I mean, after those 2 weeks, we're not sure, but everybody was having fun. And like I said, I felt like, because usually in animation, you're not free like you think you are, because you have a director who, in fact, sometimes at Disney, you have to go through 2 or 3 people to get your scene approved. And sometimes you have directors who are not sure, or he wants something specific that you don't agree with, but you have to do it. On that movie, I was like, whatever I did, I'm not kidding. Whatever I did, it was approved. Mark Dindal would say approved. He would laugh and approve. I had very small changes, like very minor changes, which usually doesn't happen. Usually, you have many changes, in projects. And but that one was like, whatever I did, it was like, oh, this is great. It's like I was free to do whatever I wanted on my characters. Of course, you have to understand the story. You have to look at the storyboard. You have to understand how your character fits into that. You cannot miss the mark. That's what happens there. But the performance, it can be whatever you want. As an animator, you are the actor, right?
Yeah.
we're doing the acting. So as long as you don't miss the point of the sequence of the story, or what the character is doing there, the acting could be anything. You could be anything, the way, whatever you think of. So on that movie, I was free to do the acting I wanted to do. Whatever I thought about the way the character felt, I could do it. And sometimes you work in projects for the director. He has a specific way that you should do the acting. For example, working with Don Bluth on Anastasia, for example. Don Bluth, he used to shoot the whole movie in live action, the whole movie, like a live action with the camera moves and like good actors. You'd get really great actors to do it, and you had to do the animation over the live action. In the acting, we couldn't think of the acting. The acting was already there for you, and you couldn't change it. He wanted that way, the way he shot the live actor. So that's not very good for an animator, because an animator wants to do her own acting.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was so fun for me to work on Emperor's New Groove, because I was free to do the acting I wanted. Yeah. I wasn't like tied to a specific way of doing, like with Don Bluth or a director who wants, no, the character has to act this way, So that's why for me it was the most fun. I still love it when I think about it. This movie became a cult. Like everywhere I go, the people want me to draw the characters from Emperor's New Groove, Cusco or whatever. And in Italy, it's very big. In Italy, it's like a cult movie.
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Something that have you gotten a chance to watch Sketchbook on Disney Plus?
I watched the Gene Kim segment.
Yeah, the Captain Hook.
Yeah, because Gene is my friend, and we're roommates on the Emperor's New Groove. He animated Cusco, So we're roommates from India, like we're friends. So I wanted to. The first one I watched was his segment. I have to watch the rest of it.
Yeah, I watched the entire series, but his and Eric Goldberg's were probably my favorite too, from that entire series, because it's just Eric Goldberg seeing. I don't know, he really is. I mean, but just seeing somebody at the height of their craft, a master of their craft, slip into that character like it's a pair of socks, or you're putting on a shirt, right?
Yeah.
And everybody puts on a shirt, everybody puts on a pair of socks, so it looks effortlessly, is what I'm really getting at. But to see him draw the genie, like, dude, I got goosebumps right now, right? Like I'm sitting there, I'm watching him, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
it's
just
so easily. Yeah.
Yes, it's like it's so I cook for a living, right? That's the trade I'm in. I love it. Getting to work with somebody that has been cooking for longer than me, and you watch a master do something. They make it look effortless. They make it look like anybody can do it, right? So I used to draw back in the day. I wasn't the greatest, but I wasn't the worst. If I would have kept going longer than 12 years old, I probably would have tried the animation field, because I just love what you guys did. That was my first love and my first dream. I wanted to do that. So watching Eric ignited this, him and Kim. So they ignited this passion that I haven't done in quite some time, this fire, right? Yeah. So I haven't drawn in probably a couple years. I just haven't had the time. And so I'm watching this, and then I've got the baby with me, the 10-month-old, so my wife's at work. And then, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the art store. I'm going to go to the hobby store real quick, and I'm going to get a sketch pad, and I'm going to go, and I've never bought an art book as far as like a how-to art book, but I was just through some stuff, and they had the Disney Villains art book. And I was like, it's only $15. I'm just going to go ahead and buy this, a sketchbook, a couple pencils, and an eraser. And then I put on Sketchbook, and then I start drawing, and I just completely left the Villains book off to the side, but I'm watching Eric do it, right? So I start doing what Eric's doing, and then I start going, and I'm about 30-45 seconds into it. I'm like, dude, I can't fucking keep up with this guy. This guy is moving at such a pace, and it's so effortlessly. Like I said, him And then Kim, for the Captain Hook, it was Captain Hook is my favorite villain of all time. My favorite
really?
Disney, yes, my favorite Disney movie has always been The Jungle Book. It's such a beautiful movie. But Captain Hook, in my opinion, him and Cruella de Vil are my two.
Yeah, Cruella.
Right?
Yeah.
Mark Davis, another genius.
Yeah.
But just getting to see those two guys, like I said, at the height of their craft and true masters of their profession, and just seeing them slip into it, like I said, like it was their fancy pair of socks or their nice shirt they were wearing. It was just something cool, because like I said, it made me feel like I could do it. I started doing it, I'm like, shit, I'm out of my league. I can't do this, Sandra. So I had to put it off to the side, and I just finished watching it. But yeah, that's such a great show to watch, man. But looking at this movie, like I said, I noticed that a lot of people, when I started looking up videos on drawing Cusco and stuff like that, a lot of people say they have issues with drawing this character. Not so much the llama, because the llama is a little bit easier, but drawing Cusco himself is hard. Were any of the characters from this movie difficult for you to really draw or ash out? Did somebody give you any trouble?
Not really, because to be honest, let me tell you a story. The designer of the whole show was my friend Joe Mosier. He was. Have you heard of him, Joe Mosier?
I think I've heard of the last name.
Okay, he was the designer. He's one of the greatest designers ever. He's amazing, and he was the chief designer for the whole show. He designed all the characters basically. Yeah. And what happened was, if you notice it, the design is very angular. It's not like totally three-dimensional like the traditional Disney film. It's more graphic, more shape oriented, and that design language was very difficult for most of the animators, right? But for some reason, I got it really fast. The design sense. One of the first shots I did, the director at the time was Roger Allers, the same director for Lion King. He was in charge of Kingdom in the Sun. So he was the main director. When he saw my animations, he was like, wow, this guy, he can draw like Joe Mosier. He understands the design language of this movie. Other people, most of the animators couldn't do it. So they put me to work with Joe Mosier doing model sheets for the movie. So Joe Mosier would do like 1 to 2 drawings for a character. I would take those drawings and do a turnaround, like a model sheet with poses, and I would check with Joe. Joe do some draw over. So I learned a lot work with Joe, and because of that, I kind of understood the design language. So for me, it wasn't difficult to draw that style at all, because I got it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Speaking of Mr. Mosier here for a second, what was it like working with him doing these model sheets? Had you done model sheets before?
No, it was first time. It was first time as working with a great designer and doing model sheets and this kind of stuff. It was the first time for me. I've been always an animator before, but then because I understood the style, they put me together with Joe. Joe was great because he's like I said, he's like one of the best designers, but he's so humble, very humble guy. And I remember going many times. I'd go to him, hey Joe, can you go over this drawing for me, you know? And he would say, no, it's great. This is great. No, it's great. And I said, no, please just go over this. No, but it's great drawing. No, please go over. He would go over and he would make it so much better. Yeah, he would improve the drawing, but he didn't want to do it. So I had to force him to do it many times, and that's how I learned. I understood how he thought. You know, that line I put there, he put in the different place. It became better. You know, the way he would draw over my drawings. Yeah, and the best way to learn drawing or animation is if you have somebody showing you, like if you have like a mentor going over your drawings, like it's an animator who's with more experience going over your drawings. When you see him draw over your drawings, pointing to the mistakes you made or show you places to improve, That's how you learn.
Yeah.
You kind of, oh, I understand now. I was putting the lines in the wrong place, or that shape there was wrong. He just pushed this part here, it became much better. That's how you learn, It's much easier to learn. And with Joe was like, I would do a drawing I thought was nice, but I had to check with him. And he would go over and it made so much better. I was like, oh wow, I could never thought to do it this way, But he's so humble and he didn't want to do it. But for me, it was like a lesson in design.
That's really cool, man.
It was like because I never went to school for animation or drawing. I'm self-taught. I had to learn by myself. And that was the first and only time somebody was teaching me, something. It was really great. I loved it.
That's wild, man. When you think you're self-taught, so many people, like you always hear Cal Arts, you always hear Sheridan, you always hear all of these schools. Did you feel, now I don't want to seem like, if this is a rude question, I don't mean it to be rude. Did you feel you were out of place? Like, did it feel weird being self-taught when all of these other kids that you're working with are going to Cal Arts or Sheridan or all these other art schools? Did it feel weird for you, not only just being from Brazil, but you're coming to America to work on this, but did you feel out of place?
No, because when I went to America to work at Disney, I was already a professional. Yeah. So I was like, I was at the same level of most of them, or sometimes better than some of them, so I never felt that. And when I started, we didn't have a school here in the 80s for animation. Today we have in Brazil. For drawing, we had like classical drawing, like the school of fine arts. We had that, but my parents could never afford paying for me. So it was never like, I don't know how to explain it, but nobody would tell me, oh, you have to go to school to learn drawing, or something I just did and just wanted to do it so much. And I learned on the job, actually working for a studio as an assistant. That's how I learned to do animation and drawing. But when I got to America, I was already a professional. So I didn't feel like, one time I remember talking to a friend of mine who went to Sheridan College. And I told him, I'd love to have gone to Cal Arts. He said, Sandro, you don't have to. I mean, you're better than many of them who went to Cal Arts. So it's just like, of course, I'd love to have gone to school like Cal Arts or Sheridan, but I never felt like out of place. No.
That's really cool, man. Because like you'll hear. Doing this podcast, I've been doing this podcast for about 2 years now. In October, it'll be about 2 years. Wow. And one thing I consistently hear from everybody that I have on, it's imposter syndrome, right? They're in this position and they feel like, holy shit, they picked the wrong person. I'm out of my league. I'm out of my depth. I'm out of this. I'm out of that. And then getting to see how they fight through that, right? The fake it until you make it, or I'm just going to continually put in as many hours as I possibly can. Yeah. If people were playing catch up, that's what they would do. They would put in as many hours as they could to play catch up. Or like you said, you find somebody, a mentor, somebody that has got 10 years, 20 years experience on you. And then you're like, hey, draw over my drawing so I see where I'm going wrong.
Yes.
It's cool to see something like that. And with Disney's got such a historied career, right? They're almost 100 years now at this point when it comes to animation. So they've got some time in this game of animation. So I got to imagine you're going to somebody that has all of the answers. And if they don't have all the answers, they know somebody that has that answer, so they can definitely direct you in the position you need to be directed. Yeah. With that being said, would they pair younger animators with somebody that was more experienced just so they could get that experience or that catch up or that teacher, that mentor they needed?
Yeah, they do. They did. When I was there, they had that happening. And I think today they still have that. Yeah.
How many?
That's something that happens. It's something that's natural,
Yeah.
In a studio environment like that, you have to have. They have to put the young guys with like with veterans so they can learn from it. That's how the veterans learn too, you know, from other veterans. That's something happens. Yeah.
Okay. Now, how do you I don't know if it's a hard question to answer because like I said, it's such a long time ago, but do you know how many people would be under one mentor, or would you get to pick a mentor, or would it just be if you were assigned to a specific scene or a specific group of sets, they'd give you a mentor at that point?
Yeah, I don't know much because I never had a mentor or never was a mentor to somebody when I was at Disney, but I know it would be like one-on-one, like one guy. Maybe one guy was like junior animator would be paired with the, let's say, Andres Deggio or Nick Ranieri or somebody. That junior animator would be working with him. It could be one, it could be a little like 2 or 3 or a little group. Yeah.
Okay. The only reason I asked that is because when I joined the Navy, you have to find somebody that's had at least a couple deployments that have been deployed or been in for some time, so they've got experience. And generally they either force you, like say you have to go for this person because he's in your division, or you can pick somebody. Luckily I got to pick somebody, and the person I picked is still one of my closest friends today. He was somebody I always looked up to. He was a married guy as well. I was a very young guy. I was like 19 joining the military. So seeing him and how you conduct yourself as a professional, what you do, how you speak, how you talk, how you treat, and it's all this crazy shit that most people think you just come straight out of the gate knowing. It's like, no, man, it's a refined skill. You got to learn all this stuff. This is where you got these veterans in this industry. Yeah.
But a place like Disney, if the guy was clever, he would go to not only one guy, he would go to many of them.
Yes.
You go to Glen Keane, you'd go to Andres Deggio, because they were like available, and they're not the kind of people who would say no, I won't do that. Everybody was open to help everybody. If you wanted to show your drawing to somebody, you could go just go there and show and get their opinion. Or I did that a few times. I was designing characters for the Princess and the Frog. I was designing some of the characters, and I went to Andres there and said, Andres, please just go over this for me. Give him an idea here. He'll do it. Everybody was so open to exchange ideas or opinions or going over the drawings. So if somebody's clever, he'd go to many top people, for drawing opinions.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm glad you brought up the Princess and the Frog, because like I told you before we hit record, that is my favorite modern day princess and favorite modern day princess movie. It is so fun. Like I said, being a chef, right? I love food, and seeing this movie revolve around her. My dream when I was young, when I was 12, I was flipping through the channels right on TV. And my mom was working 2 jobs, and it was generally my job to get dinner started, not so much cook, but it was to get dinner started, because she'd come home late. She's trying to cook for the 5 of us. She's trying to, decompress from a long work day. Right. So she's under amount of stress that I couldn't even comprehend there. Right. So I'm flipping through the channels, and I happen to see a guy named Emeril Lagasse.
I love him. I used to watch him all the time. Yeah.
Right. So he captivated an audience. What Walt Disney is for you guys, Emeril Lagasse is for me. Right. So I'm flipping through and I see him. Right. And it's one of those moments where I got goosebumps again. Right. So I'm watching him. The entire audience is captivated. It's like a magic spell that he cast before the show started, and everybody's having a good time. He was beating on the bongo drums for the band. He's throwing spices. Everybody's cheering, and it's all centered around food, right? And I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to cook. I want to do what he's doing. How, right? So my mom was an amazing cook. My mom is an amazing cook. It sucks because she won't cook for me anymore, because she says everything I cook is so much better than what she cooks. I'm like, Mom, come on, please.
Well, you want her recipe?
Yeah, that's the way it is. But she won't do it anymore. She's like, no, you cook better. I like your food better than I like my food. And I was like, Mom, I get it, but I really enjoy the food I grew up with. That's what, like, you remember Ratatouille, that scene?
Yeah.
Where he goes eating and then he drops the fork. Yes. that is what every single person in my industry chases. Seeing somebody not so much drop a fork, but just go, oh my God, this is amazing, right? So chasing that, and I still have flashbacks. Like whenever my mom will cook, I won't tell her I'm coming over, and I'll just show up because she lives like a 15-minute drive down the street from me. So I'll just show up around dinner time, and I'm like, oh, you're cooking, Mom, so I get to eat. So it's like it's that I trick her into cooking type of thing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, but this is why I love Princess and the Frog, because Emerald was a big dude when it came to Louisiana cooking and Cajun cooking.
Yes.
So seeing all of that kind of ignited that love that I had for food through Emerald Lagasse. And I think that's why I love this movie so much, but it's fun, right? And I think this is like the last of the traditional, to an extent, of that 2D style of animation. And you start seeing the Frozens and everything coming in. But it was so beautiful. There was so much heart. There was so much soul. I love Prince Naveen. It was just the villain he was. It just, everything about this movie screamed classic Disney animation from the start to finish. It was beautiful. Is this kind of like how Emperor's New Groove came on? You know, you were offered a job, you came in, or you saw the boards going around, you're like, I would like to work on this. But how'd you get on to Princess and the Frog?
That was what happened was when I was at Disney, after Emperor's New Groove, we started, I don't know if you remember, Home on the Range.
I do.
Yeah, that was another one that when they started, it was something else. It wasn't that movie. It was like
had John Sanford on last night.
Oh, you had him? Oh, okay. He was my director.
I just talked to John last night. Yeah.
Okay. He was my director. Yeah, my director. But when I started, was with different directors, not him. Mm-hmm. Was Mike Gabriel and Mike Giamo. They were the directors, and the movie used to be called Sweating Bullets.
Yeah.
It had ghosts, and it was very different than what it turned out to be. Mm-hmm. And then I worked on that movie, and I did the sheriff, I did the goat, Jab, the goat. Yeah. And then after that movie, they didn't have any more hand-drawn animation projects in California, right, at the California studio. And they told me, Sandro, what do you want to do? You want to do storyboards? They want me to train in CG. I said, no, I want to keep drawing. Okay, we're not doing any more hand-drawn animation here. They had already announced that they were going to CG, hand-drawn was going down in California. But they said, okay, in Florida, in the studio in Orlando, we're going to still make at least one more movie in hand-drawn animation. If you want to go there, you can go there. So I said, okay, I'll go there. I'll go to Florida. So they moved me to Florida to work there on the movie called My Peoples. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to be a hybrid movie, a CG with hand-drawn animation. And they had like in the story, the main character would make toys with recycle things, like things that in the house. He would make like little toys based on the family, and those little toys were supposed to be CG, computer animation, and the characters, like the world would be hand-drawn animation. So it would be characters hand-drawn, the main characters, and the toys would be CG, or like a hybrid movie. So they moved my family, my stuff, all to Florida, everything to Florida. They paid everything. So I was there in Florida. I loved the people there. Everything was great. And then the movie was in production. We're doing production scenes, and everything was great. And then they decided to close the studio and cancel the movie. It was a big thing, a big deal. Everybody was laid off. Yeah. Over 400 people. They only kept a small group of people to move to California, back to California. But I was one of the guys, the artists laid off, So I decided to come back to Brazil to open a studio. So I spent a few years here. And then after, I don't know how many years, they called me back to work on Princess the Frog. They said, Sandro, you want to come back because we're going to start making more hand-drawn animation. And I said, I was like trying to go to Blue Sky at the time to do storyboards on Blue Sky. And so I was trying to decide what to do, and then they said, it's going to be a hand-drawn movie, and we get Eric Goldberg, we get these people, this. Say, oh, okay, sounds good. So I decided to go back. So I had like 4 or 5 years maybe away from Disney, So I went back to work on Princess the Frog, but it was like an invitation to go back. And when I got there, they said, "Oh, things are great here. We're gonna keep making hand-drawn animation. Everybody was so happy." And I was like, "Wow, this is strange because everybody's so up, and it looks like it's a great future for hand-drawn animation again." It turned out not to be.
Yeah.
But it was like an invitation to go back. I was away from Disney after Home on the Range, after the studio in Florida closed down. I was away for 4 or 5 years until they invite me back on the Princess the Frog.
Yeah, I really wish, and I know Eric Goldberg said it, that there was an article that came out last week, I think, when Sketchbook dropped.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Disney's going to return to that 2D, that hand-drawn animation. I hope it happens. I really.
Yeah, let's see. Let's wait and see. Wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You've got to. So my son's style of animation is that 3D. It's that right. Pixar. It's what they're doing now. It's just everything evolves, So but it is nice to see when it comes back, because I can't remember who I talked about it with, but I think it was Dave Wasson, the creator of that just did the Cuphead show for Netflix. So I had him on a couple weeks ago, and I was like, don't take this the wrong way, because it's going to sound like I'm ignorant trying to say some of these words, because I've been a fan of animation since I was a very little kid, but getting to go in depth and talk with folks like yourself and people that I've had on here before, I am very new to the terminology. So I'm trying to play catch up and learn as much as I can. So whenever I try to explain something, it always sounds like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just don't know the terminology quite yet, right? It's not all up here, but it will get there maybe 10 years from now, right? It takes a little while for all this shit to happen. But what I was telling him was what I absolutely loved about the Cuphead show is what I loved about old shows like Top Cat. I don't know if you remember that one from Hanna-Barbera, or the Flintstones, or the
of course.
Or so stuff like that, the Looney Tunes. What you would see on traditional hand-drawn animation is if somebody was drawing and they drew too hard underneath an eye, you would see that on some of the things. You would get lucky enough. That's what I loved, because you would
mistakes. Yeah.
Yes, you would see little mistakes, but it was little mistakes that somebody created with these. Right? They did this with their hands. It came from here and it went to here. Now, this is not a dig on people that are strictly, CGI. They do everything on a laptop or an iPad or anything like that, a sketchpad. I just love, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with that style of hand-drawn animation. And that's what strikes me the most. Everybody's got, their Picasso, their Starry Night, they've got whatever that moves them. And that's just what moves me. It's just seeing those little imperfections, somebody that might have went a little too hard, or they were under a deadline, so they smudged it. I mean, it's crazy just picking out old shows and you see a mistake and you're like, I see it. And my wife's like, shut up, I don't want to hear this anymore, can we just watch the movie? So it like I said, I love seeing stuff like that. I really hope they go back to that classic 2D animation, because there's something beautiful about that. It's something that's missing today, right? So
and I think there's room for both.
Yes, there really is.
And also, when Disney decided not to make any more hand-drawn animation, I was very surprised, because okay, I don't mind DreamWorks or other studios, but Disney has a tradition.
Yes. They created essentially,
Exactly. Yeah. It should be the last studio in the world just to stop making,
Yeah.
It's very strange for me that they couldn't keep a small team continually making hand-drawn animation.
Yeah, you've got Disney, and then let Pixar do that type of stuff. Exactly. Open up another studio. I mean, I know it's money at the end of the day, but Disney's buying everything. Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar. I mean,
they have the money. Yeah.
They really do. And so it's just please just keep it. I'm
what they could have done? They could have kept Florida, the studio in Florida, making hand-drawn animation.
Yes.
Right.
It
a
would have
small
been.
team there and keep making one every 3-4 years. In California, Pixel, you could be making CG animation.
Sandro, I think you need to put in an application for Disney and to start running these studios, because you have $1 billion idea right there. I've gotten the chance to talk to quite a few. So last year in 2020, when I started this podcast, I reached out to anybody and everybody that I could possibly get on here and talk to. Anytime I saw credits, I was writing names down, and then I would start Googling and trying to find anybody that would want to come on and talk to me. So at the first year, it was all essentially, I don't know if you ever watched it back in the early 2000s, but in Cartoon Network, they had a little show called Ed, Edd and Eddy. It was done, right? So it was done by AKA Studios up in Vancouver, I believe. So I had, that first year, I had almost every storyboard artist, every writer, a lot of the voice actors, anybody and everybody that was on and worked at that studio I had on. And then you'd see a little bit of Nickelodeon, you'd see a little bit of Cartoon Network. And then this year I've strictly been focusing on Disney, because without Disney, you don't get a lot of the stuff that fans like myself grew up on. It looks very, very bleak, and it looks very, very depressing if you take Disney completely out of the equation of animation. Right. So like I said, seeing all of this come, and then knowing that there was an animation studio here not too long ago and they closed it down, I've gotten to talk with Tom Cito. I've gotten to talk with Aaron Blaze. I just talked to John and talking to you. So there's been a few people that I've had on here from the Disney world, and getting to hear the stories, not only of the Florida MGM studios, but getting to hear California studios and seeing all of the stuff that Disney helped create. And like I said, you guys built childhoods for all of us, right? So it'd be, like I said, it'd be nice to see that return to what made Disney so special so long ago, right? But as we start to wind down here, because I don't want to keep you too much longer, man. So I really appreciate you taking the time for me. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm so happy to do this.
Yeah. So
thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. I really appreciate you doing this. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate to some fans' questions. And if you had fun, I would really like to have you come back on later in the year, and we can go super in depth about a couple movies, right? So a couple of these questions I like to start out with before we get to the fans' questions. So one of them is your Mount Rushmore of animators, right? So if you had to pick 4 people, and then you had an honorable mention, so you've got 5 people total, who are the 4 on your Mount Rushmore when it comes to animators?
It could be like from the old timers too.
It can be anybody that you've drawn inspiration from, or somebody that you looked up to.
Okay, Mill Call, one of 9 Old Men. Bill Titler. Bill Titler he's not like one of 9 Old Men, but he was one of the guys who taught the 9 Old Men. Was before Bill Titler. I would say Ward Kimball.
Yes.
Ward Kimball, it's like incredible. Frank Thomas and Mark Davis.
Oh man, I'm so glad. I always like doing this, and it's funny seeing how my Mount Rushmore has changed, but this is the definitive list for me. So I don't know if you know him, but Gendy Tartakovsky, right? He's always he's always been my favorite animator of all time. I love Mark Davis. Out of all the 9 Old Men, he's my guy. Craig McCracken, and then Jorge Gutierrez, which is
Jorge,
So I that was my most recent episode. I released that one on Cinco de Mayo.
I saw it. I was watching actually.
It's that movie. The Book of Life. That's
great.
Made me cry more than anything has ever made anybody cry. Like, I don't know what, it's so beautiful. His style, his voice.
Yeah, very different than anything else.
It really is. And I don't throw this compliment out. I don't throw this out there very often, but it is a perfect movie from start to finish. Like, I'm pretty sure if Jorge looked at it, he's like, I'm pretty sure he would change a couple things maybe, because whenever you're creating something, like I do it all the time.
We see problems.
I see perfection when I see The Book of Life. So with my food, everybody's like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever eaten. And then I look at them like, really, it's the greatest thing? It needed more salt, it needed more acid, it needed more fat, it could have used this, it could have, so it's just, we see what we want to see, and we see what, because we're the ones putting in the work, right? But those 4 guys, And I'm actually wearing the creation on my shirt. I don't know if you ever watched a little show called Hey Arnold.
I remember that show. Yes.
So Craig Bartlett, he's my honorable mention. He's coming on later in the year too. I'm really looking forward to that one because this show was like my childhood, right? I always wanted to be like Arnold. I wanted his room. The music was so fun. It was such a fun show. Another one that I like doing as far as the questions go before we get to the fans questions is 2 books that you think every animator, because there's a lot of animators that listen to this, and there's a lot of kids and people that are trying to get in the animation industry, and there's a lot of fans of animation that listen and watch this episode or watch these shows. So what are 2 books in the animation field that you think every animator or every fan of animation should have on their bookshelves?
Okay, I would say definitely the one that they have to have it for sure is The Illusion of Life.
I knew you were going there.
In New York. Oh, and the other one is Richard Williams' Animator Survival Kit.
Yes,
that's the one that if you want to learn animation, go with that one. It's all there for somebody who wants to start learning animation. All the mechanics of animation is all there. Yeah, The Illusion of Life is not only the history but the philosophy of Disney animation, and they have all the principles that are explained so well, but you understand how they thought when they were making movies, at Disney. And there's Richard Williams for the technical aspect, because you have to know the technical aspects to do the performance.
100%. So, The Illusions of Life is the first book that. It's not the first book I bought. The book that I bought first that got me wanting to know more about what you guys and gals do was of Mice of Magic from Leonard.
Oh, yes, I love that. Yeah.
So that one, I had a guy on. His name was Fred Cyber. He was the last Hanna-Barbera president for Cartoon Network. And I was talking to him, and he tells me he came over from MTV, right? He wanted to do all of this stuff. He wanted to see the shorts come back, or he wanted to see that shorts program come, and that's what was going to revitalize cartoons in the 90s. And I was like, dude, how did you have the foresight to think about something like this coming from MTV, music videos?
Yes.
Like, well, I read this little book called Mice of Magic from Leonard Maltin, and I wrote that down, and then I bought the book. And I got it on Amazon probably like 2 days later. And I'm reading this and I'm like, holy shit, there is so much in the first chapter alone, right? Than I've seen in any book. Like you ever seen any movie that has serial killers in it and they've got like Post-it notes or strings that are going to like all of these
things? That kind of thing. Yeah.
Right? That's what it's in my bedroom, I think, but that's what my book looks like. I've got so many highlights folded over.
Right. Yeah.
The stuff circled. So if I ever get the chance to talk to Leonard, I've talked to Jerry Beck, and he was one of the greatest people I've ever had on here. He's forgotten more than I'll ever be able to learn about animation.
He's a historian
yes.
of animation. Yeah.
Brilliant person. So that one started, but The Illusion of Life, right? That book, I had waited because the price point was like almost $80-$90, right? For the new version. So I was like, I just had a baby. I didn't want to buy it, right? Our second kid. I was like, I want to buy it. No, I don't want to buy it. I was like, And then I ended up working like fucking 80 hours, or not 80 hours, excuse me, 60 hours in 1 week, and then another 65 the next week. So I had pretty good overtime. So I was like, I'm going to treat myself and buy this book. I'm reading it, and I wasn't even reading the words. I was just flipping through the pages, and I never do this. I was flipping through the pages, and I was just mesmerized.
Yes.
The art, the amount of detail. And I'm just like, oh my God. And then I start reading it. And one line I picked out of there that still sticks with me. And then whenever I hear somebody say it, I smile. It's you do not animate what the characters are doing. You animate what the characters are feeling or what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful, and it's so articulate, and it's so to the point. It's you don't do what they're doing because anybody can do that.
Because the thing is it's not difficult to move the character.
Yes.
It's difficult to animate the character, to make the character alive, thinking. Yes. It's different. You can move the character. You can make a character move, but what's the personality? Is the personality there? Is the character is telling you something? That's the difficult part.
It really is, and it's beautiful when it's done right, because you can tell like, oh, they get it. They have that book. They read that same line I read, and they applied it to their work. I love it. All right. So the last one before we get to the fans' questions is our animation recommendation. This is where whenever the guests come on, we get a lot of repeat guests on, and we also get a lot of guests that come on that are referred to from the guests I've had on for. Is there anybody that you've worked with that you think would have a fun time on here that we should reach out to? Would you recommend anybody that you think would have a good time on?
Yes. Did you ever get Nick Ranieri?
I did not. No.
Get him. He's great.
Yeah.
He did Cusco. He's the Cusco's father.
Yeah.
He's great. He's like one of the top animators. He was the top, like one of the best at Disney. So get him. And if you can get Joe Mosher.
Yeah.
Great designer.
Okay, I'm gonna write them down.
Joe Mosher worked briefly with Chuck Jones.
Yeah.
The last projects of Chuck Jones. So he has some great stories.
That's really cool, man. I got both of them written down. I actually had Phil Roman on not too long ago.
Oh, wow.
When I talk about stories, like he told the entire story about how he got into the Grinch and then working with Chuck Jones. And then he was sitting there, he was talking, he's like, Chuck Jones was looking over my stuff, and he looked back, he was like, who animated all of this stuff? And he was like, I did. He was like, who are you? And he was like, I'm Phil. And he told me the story. He's like, you're an animator now. And he was like, wow. Oh my God, my hero validated me. And just seeing all of this, like, I'm trying not to cry.
It makes all the difference when somebody like Chuck Jones would say, you're an animator. It makes all the difference.
Yeah, man.
That's what happened to me with Don Bluth when I went to work for him. He had my portfolio open, and he was looking and said, because it was my portfolios and my friend's portfolio. We went together to try to get a job there. And he looked at my portfolio and said, who is this portfolio here? I said, this is mine. You're an animator.
Oh,
so it's like a validation, from the top guys.
Yeah, I've actually got John Pomeroy coming on. He was supposed to come on tomorrow.
He's my friend, John Pomeroy.
Yeah. I'm so excited because one of my favorite movie, and for the longest time, I did not know this was it wasn't a Disney movie. All Dogs Go to Heaven. Right?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And sad story here for just a second. I actually just had to put I had a 13-year-old pit mix. He was a rescue dog that we got. I actually had to put him down 2 weeks ago. And when I did that, I was I'm still, it's still very hard coming in, because I used to have 4 dogs, and now I only have 3. But coming home, right, that first day after, like I guess I'm trying not to cry, but coming home and I forgot that he wasn't there anymore, right? So I'm calling him in, and I go, Louis, come on inside, buddy, because he was always the last one in, because he was old, right? He was hurt, and he ended up having pancreatic cancer. So I'm waiting, I'm holding the door, and then my wife comes up behind me, and she puts her hand on my shoulder, and then she's like, he's not here. And I'm like, oh fuck. And it's like it's been 2 weeks now, and it's still, it's not like it really is, man. And back in February, at the end of February, we lost my wife's father. He died from COVID, unfortunately. So it's been like a real string of just like shit, right? And just seeing all of this stuff come, and then I get a little happiness from watching a movie like All Dogs Go to Heaven, and getting to see that, and just like, it's as stupid as it sounds, just like, I know he's in a better place because I saw he was in a better place because I got to see it in a movie that I saw when I was a little kid. I'm looking forward to being able to talk to John here. We were supposed to do it tomorrow, but I forgot it was Mother's Day, and I was like, oh shit. And then he messaged me. He's like, hey, it's Mother's Day. I don't want to get in any trouble. I was like, yeah, no problem, man. We'll push it out later in May. So we're talking to him in a couple of weeks, man. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to that one.
John, when I started my career, John was my hero. I mean, he's still my hero. He still is, but today he's like a friend. I know him so well, but he was like the one that looked, when I watched the animation that he did, I was like, I want to do that. That's the level, he was my hero.
That's really cool. They always say don't meet your heroes, but I've never met a hero that.
No, he's great.
Me wrong, yeah. So it's cool to see that you're getting to meet a hero, and he is everything that you think he is, and then some, right? So it's always beautiful to see that. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna rotate in the fans' questions, and then this one's always interesting because it's like picking your favorite kid, right? But one of the people that wrote in wanted to know, what's been your favorite character that you've ever animated? So from across your entire career, you got one or two that stick out the most to you?
Yeah, like I said, it's so difficult to pick one. But if I have to, let's say I have to do it for now for this show. Yeah. I like the old guy in Emperor's New Groove. That
yeah.
the tremble and don't throw me out the window. You know, I love him. Yeah, I love. For me, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
Working on animating him. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Like I say, his groove. Yeah. How he lives his life, his rhythm, how he lives his life.
Yeah, I love doing that scene. When I was doing the act, I was trying to listen. I was listening to the dialogue, and I was doing all these gestures. His groove, you know, I was doing this.
One more time. What does he sound like, Sandro? Because you could do it. How does he sound?
His groove.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's so fun.
One day I'll be like him. I'll be an old man. Don't throw off my groove.
Oh, that's great. So we actually talked your first Disney movie you ever remember seeing. If you had the keys to the kingdom, meaning you can pick yourself and put yourself in any, and this one's come up a few different times. So we're going to do two movies. Okay. So if you could go back in time, right? And you can work on any of the classic, maybe the first 20 years of Disney movies. Is there one or two that stick out that you would absolutely love to work on if you could?
Yeah, Pinocchio.
That water scene is so beautiful.
Now for me, it's like perfection.
Yes.
It's sometimes I watch the movie and I see the drawings in books.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was at Disney, I remember I don't know today, but when I was there at the time, they had the animation research library. Mm-hmm. You could go there and see original drawings from the time. You could ask for, can I see a scene of Pinocchio, the original? They would pull a whole box with all the drawings. And I remember looking at these drawings from Pinocchio, and I was like, it's a lot of work here. It's not something you can do in a week or 2 weeks. It takes time to do all these effects of water and every if you flip the animations on paper, if you flip and you see all the water moving perfectly, but every little they would color every little part of it. It's like, for me, it's all it's art. It's totally art. It's not something they just did for the movie. It was an artistic piece, you know.
Yes. It's
something that we don't see much anymore. And so for me, it's perfection. And always when I watch the movie, it's always how they could do that at that time, you know.
Yeah.
You know, only a few years from, if you think about it, only a few years from Steamboat Willie, you know.
Yes.
That very stiff animation that they did. Only a few years to get to Pinocchio. It's so fast, you know. So for me, Pinocchio, I would say Pinocchio.
Now, if you had a more modern day, so let's treat that early years as that, and we'll do anything after Walt's passing. So Walt passed right before Jungle Book came out, sadly. So is there any franchise or any Disney movie that came out from right after Jungle Book? We can include Jungle Book all the way up to, what was the most recent one? Was it Encanto? So from Jungle Book to Encanto, is there one movie in that block that you would have loved to animate on?
I don't know why, but I love the Rescuers. I love that movie. It's a simple movie, but I think it's a great story and the characters. The Rescuers. I was going to say Robin Hood, but which is fun too. But I think the Rescuers has something that I love it. There's something about the movie that I loved it.
We just watched Robin. It was I thought we've watched the entire set of movies for the Disney movies with my oldest son. But we put on Robin Hood. He's like, I don't think I've seen this one. And I looked at him, I'm like, really? This one? I was like, I could have swore we've watched this one a couple times at this point. He's like, no. He's like, I don't remember any of this. I'm like, well, you're in for a treat, because I really enjoyed Robin Hood.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie.
Yes, it really is. So we had a couple more here. Is there one or two heroes and one or two villains that you would have loved to animate.
Oh, like your favorite one, Captain Hook is.
Oh,
I'd love to.
So nice.
Great.
Snazzy. Yes.
Yeah, and also would have been very difficult. I don't know if anybody can do it or could do it. Shere Khan.
Yeah. Oh man.
Shere Khan is like another perfection. The Milk Hall again is my favorite animator ever. He did that, and the design in animation is just, for me, it's perfect. It's like underplayed, you know. In the way he moves is very, with the voice that with the British actor, it just fits so well the way Milk Hall animated it, and the design, the jaw, you know, it's everything, the way he moves, you know, his head. It's perfection. That's the one. Captain Hook and Shere Khan.
Now, what about the heroes?
Heroes.
Like to animate.
I don't know. Heroes so difficult to think of. Maybe Tarzan. I would love to have done Tarzan because of the way the anatomy of the character is very stylized. You know, in a way, the way Glen Keane did it. The anatomy of the character, you know, and the way he moves, the way he jumps and moves. I'd love to have done him, because on Tarzan I only helped doing the gorillas walking. I didn't do much because we're waiting for Emperor's New Groove for the story to be done. So it didn't have any works. They put everybody to help the other project. So I just did gorillas, but I would love to have done Tarzan. Robin Hood. Okay, he's a hero.
Yeah. That'd been cool. And it's funny you bring up gorillas. So during COVID, I work in the restaurant industry. So we all got sent home. So I had all of this like artistic stuff that I had up here, and it felt like my head was going to explode. I needed to get it out, right? I needed to cook, man, because it's what I've wanted to do since I was 12. And what I love doing is I love showing people how to cook. I love cooking in front of people. I love It sounds weird, but I love feeding people, right? So I'd take a spoon and I would just like, try this, right? I love that aspect. Like whenever I have friends over, I always tell them, hey, dinner's at like 5 o'clock or dinner's at 6 o'clock. And I don't start cooking until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever time it is. So I can have, it's like me acting, or it's like an actor on stage and Broadway and shit. That's the way I treat. Like it's very fun. Like I said, Emerald Lagasse, man, I'm idolizing her. I'm copying my hero. So I love doing this stuff. And so when I got sent home, I was like, I'm going to do something on Facebook. I'm going to show everybody everything I've learned since the age of 12. So for the last 20 years, anything that I've learned, from screwing up, from knocking it out of the park, from reading books to all these teachers. And I named it the Vanilla, because I'm white and I'm super white, but Vanilla Gorilla Kitchen, because gorillas are my favorite animal. So I'm glad you brought up gorillas, right? So I haven't gotten to do too much with it because having a 10-month-old and then working as much as I work and then doing this, I haven't really had a chance to get on there and do any Facebook lives for him, but I'm starting to do that again here in the next couple of weeks.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so it's a lot of, it's a lot of fun. All right, where are we at? Shit, I can't read my handwriting. Oh, here we are. Last one. Looking back on your career now, right? With all of the characters you've created, all of the shows you've worked on, the movies you worked on, if you had to sum up your career in like a sentence, what would it say? Or what would you feel about your career, I guess, is a better way of putting it, a little bit easier.
Yeah, I would say that I could say that I've been doing what I love. Yeah, I've been doing what I love.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, because I love animation, I love drawing, and I never worked on anything else besides animation. That's my animation drawing. Animation was my first job, and yeah, I've been doing what I love.
That's really cool. There's so many folks out there that are in jobs right now that they absolutely can't stand. They're just, it's a paycheck for them, right? So
it must be very difficult. Yeah.
It really is, man. But getting to hear stories like yours, getting to see you come from a country like Brazil, you were inspired by art and animation and cartoons, and you getting to chase that dream, come to Disney was made, where all of these dreams are made for kids and adults on a consistent basis, on a daily basis. Getting to see you chase your dream, live your dream, love that you're doing your dream on a day-to-day basis. That is something special about that. Because like I said, so many people just do what they got to do to survive. And it's nice to see that people can still chase that dream. They can still work for something, and they can still earn a living on what they really want to do, their real passion, man. So Sandro, it's been really fun getting to chat with you, man. I never know what to expect with these things, and I really appreciate you spending some time with me today.
I love it. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me and for the invitation. I loved it.
Oh, no problem, man. Well, there's no better way.
You're great doing this.
What's that?
You're very good in doing this.
Oh, thank you, man. There's one thing I do want to get better at, and I would love, and there's so many people on that I've had on that speak different languages. I would absolutely love to be able to do an interview with you in Portuguese, but me trying to figure out how to do that in such a little bit of time, like I would be able to be, yeah, man, like your language is so beautiful. Portuguese is so beautiful. But there's no better way to end this podcast than he's been Sandro. I've been Julian. This has been a What's in My Head podcast, and this has been another piece of your childhood. Good night.
Next week's guest is John Sanford. Enjoy the sneak peek.
We reluctantly added the cricket back in because Joe Grant, God bless him, who was the character designer, story man, and director of Dumbo, for crying out loud, was at the studio at the time in his 80s, but I think you're missing the bed without this cricket. And he kept pushing the cricket on us, and we were like, no, we don't cricket. We got enough to worry about with Mushu. And so they forced us to put the cricket in. So the way we found to use the cricket was, and I'm not answering your question at all, but I found.
Oh no, you're perfectly fine.
It's a funny thing. We're like, okay, we'll put the cricket in. What's great about the cricket is he's little and he's cute and he's earnest and he doesn't talk. Mushu can talk to him. Mushu can sound out his ideas with this little guy, so it's someplace for exposition to go to. But also because the cricket's so cute, and it allows Mushu to be even worse, because Mushu was a new kind of sidekick for us in that he had an agenda that wasn't exactly on the up and up. He was using Mulan to get what he wanted, and he was lying the entire time. So he was not a nice, traditional nice character. He's a con man. He's a phony. And the fact that like he's got this little dude that's like supporting everything he does kind of helps him. It's the sugar that helps the medicine go down, so to speak. So that's why that was how that little pairing came out. Is we were, and of course there's like, they're like, well, what is it? It's like, it's R2 and C3PO. That's the pairing. It's like this one talks and chirps. This one hears English and interprets it for the audience. All sorts of fun stuff to be had there. So, but it wasn't, I don't believe it was Roy Disney